Next, I'm going to look at some simple ways of transforming the data itself as it goes through the ETL process. There are a lot of times where the data you're looking at in the source database isn't very consistent. So for one example is in the pubs database, there's something called modcook. It really means modern cooking. And that would be some data that I'd like to transform into something a little bit more legible. And take a look at a way of doing that here in this next section. One of the more useful tools for performing data transformations is the select case statement. The format is select some data, and when it's true that the case matches some kind of value, then you change that value to something else. So for example, we're going to look in the titles table, and we're going to see if this data here can be transformed into something a little bit easier to read. Traditional cooking, popular computing, modern cooking, etc. So I'll examine that data, and then when it's true it's business with a lowercase b, I'll make it uppercase b. If it's mod cook, I'll make it modern cooking, and so on. By putting this select case statement together, I end up transforming the data itself as it goes through the ETL process. Very simple, very effective. Now this would be tedious to update if at some point they added additional types and I need to go through and change this code to match each type. So this works well if you don't think, if there's not many values to examine, and also if you don't think it's going to change over time, not that often anyway, or not that much, and if you don't believe it's going to be used for something other than this one table. If you think that there might be a time where a similar transformation might happen and be useful in a variety of tables, you can make a lookup table. An example would be, I make a lookup table which would have a column for the 2-letter abbreviation of states, and then another column with the full name of the state. And I could use that one lookup table to transform the 2-letter codes into the full name. Let's look at an example with this data. I could go through and create a table called title type lookup. Title type key is just an artificial surrogate key I'm creating. Original title type and clean title type. Then I insert some data using the select case statement from my original data source. Now, if I go and look at that title type table, Yep, I'm in the wrong database here, so let me make sure I'm in the correct one. No, that's all right. That's right. Too lazy to type it out. You can see I have the original values and the new clean values. Now, I'll incorporate that lookup table with a join. And I'll join it based on the original type column. But what I'll extract and use for loading into the data warehouse is the clean titles. Remember that on this side, that's the column alias. So now, oops, let's see, what have I done here? No, I didn't put that table in the right database. Now that's actually unfortunate, but it's also a good example of things that can happen. So I'll go ahead and have a data warehouse made specifically for this. I'll put that title table in there and fill it up again. Okay, now this should work. I could have changed the name of the database here. That's what that part is, but it's I think it's easier and actually much more realistic to keep just the two databases involved, unless you're using a staging database of some type. But anyway, you can see that the transformation did occur. Now, this lookup table would be handy if I thought that I was going to go through and update these transformations later on. I could just update the table as it comes in. And also, if I thought I might be able to use this data, this transform data, in multiple tables. So if, in my example earlier about the state abbreviation, like California, Washington, Oregon, and changing the CA and WA and OR into California, Washington, Oregon, that might be a transformation I would apply to many different tables as it goes through the ETL process. And in that case, using a lookup table is probably easier to maintain and much more practical. The trick would be to just get used to joining back on that lookup table. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, that's just one type of transformation. There are lots more to learn, but this is actually one that you'll get a lot of mileage out of for a very long time. The select case statement.